So, you're building or upgrading your sim racing setup and you've hit the big question. Single monitor, ultra-wide, triples, or VR? A question that stumps many in the sim racing world, but I think I've found the definitive answer. Whatever your budget, space constraints, and preference, stick around as what will work best for your setup may surprise you. So before we get into which setup to buy, let's quickly cover the terms you'll actually need to know, because half the battle is just understanding what in the Egyptian hieroglyphics, or I guess wingdings, you're reading on the box or Amazon listing. Refresh rate is how many times per second your monitor can display a new image, measured in hertz. A higher refresh rate means less input delay, smoother motion, and less blur. Genuinely useful in sim racing to feel more connected to what's happening on screen, and even more helpful when a car snaps sideways right in front of you. 120 Hz is a solid minimum these days, with 144 to 165 Hz being the realistic sweet spot. Just know your PC also needs to hit that same frame rate in-game for you to actually feel the benefit, because a 165 Hz monitor running a game at 60 frames per second won't feel any different to a 60 Hz one. If your GPU supports it, look for adaptive sync too. G-Sync on Nvidia, FreeSync on AMD, which locks the monitor's refresh rate to whatever your GPU is actually outputting, cutting out screen tearing and stutter. Now, resolution is simply how many pixels make up the image. More pixels means a sharper picture, but that also means your GPU has to work harder to fill them all in every frame. That trade-off matters more than people think, which we'll get into shortly. Panel type is worth a quick mention too, since it affects a lot of the above. IPS gives the best colors and viewing angles, but is traditionally a touch slower to respond. VA gives deeper blacks and contrast, but can smear in fast, dark scenes. OLED is near instant and has perfect blacks, but carries burn-in risk from static HUD elements and just costs a lot more. We'll come back to this properly in the next chapter. And then there's field of view, or FOV. Genuinely one of the most important and most overlooked settings in sim racing. FOV is how much of the game world you can actually see through your screen at once, and it needs to roughly match your real viewing angle for the game to look and feel natural. Set it wrong, and cars can look further away or closer than they actually are, which throws off your braking points and sense of speed. There are free FOV calculators online where you plug in your screen size and viewing distance, and it'll spit out the correct number for your setup. Genuinely worth the 5 minutes of your time before you do anything else. Right, so now let's talk about shape and size, because this is where your setup actually starts to take form. 16:9 is the standard single monitor, the same ratio as most TVs. A solid 1440p 165 Hz option runs around £100 to £150, making it the cheapest, simplest way in. It needs the least GPU power out of any option here, and it's the only aspect ratio that works properly on console, as PS5 and Xbox simply can't run ultra-wide or triple screen setups easily. The trade-off is field of view though. You're limited to what's directly in front of you, with basically no peripheral vision, so you lose track of cars alongside you more easily. 21:9 ultra-wide is the next step up. A single curved panel, usually around 3440 by 1440, that wraps a bit further around you. Expect to pay somewhere around £200 plus for a decent 165 Hz panel, so a genuinely low risk upgrade from the 16:9. The curve, commonly rated around 1000R, keeps the edges roughly the same distance from your eyes, so the image doesn't distort. You get a noticeably wider field of view and a better sense of what's happening either side of the car without needing a huge jump in GPU power or a complicated setup. Still, just one cable, one panel, one power source. 32:9 super ultra wide effectively doubles that again. Think two 1440p monitors stitched into one curved panel. The immersion jump is real, and setup stays simple since it's all technically one monitor, but expect to pay upwards of £900 for a good one, and considerably more GPU power to push that many pixels. Not every sim handles the aspect ratio cleanly either, so it's worth checking if your favorite titles support it before you buy one. And then triples. 3 separate monitors angled around you, sometimes running a combined resolution north of 7680 by 1440. This is the most immersive monitor-based option out there, capable of getting close to a genuine 180-degree field of view. And it's worth looking for panels with a minimal bezel so the image doesn't break up too much at the joints. The catch is, everything gets harder. Budget roughly £200 to £300 per monitor before you've even bought a mounting solution, which by itself can run into the hundreds unless you've already got a genuinely sturdy desk, in which case, what are you doing? Get yourself a rig. Performance takes a real hit too. Rendering 3 images instead of 1 typically costs 30 to 40% of your frame rate compared to the same settings on a single ultrawide. And finally VR, which is a different beast entirely, and it spans a genuinely huge price range, so let's look at both ends. At the cheap and cheerful end, something like the Meta Quest 3S runs about £180 secondhand, a proper budget entry point into VR, and on PlayStation, Sony's own PSVR line covers a similar niche for console racers. So what does the Quest 3S have going for it? It's an all-in-one headset with a built-in battery, so it's properly wireless with no PC tether required, and it's the easiest, cheapest way to actually try VR before committing serious money. The trade-offs are real though. Image quality over its USB-C connection is noticeably softer, with flatter colors and visible sharpening artifacts. General setup requires a Meta account just to get going, and motion sickness or discomfort during longer sessions due to its heavy weight is a common complaint at this end of the market. On the other end, something like the Pimax Dream Air Slam sits at £1,774 with controllers, the most expensive option in this entire guide by a huge margin. What that money gets you: a DisplayPort connection for a significantly cleaner, more stable image, micro OLED panels with genuinely excellent color and contrast, a noticeably lighter and more comfortable fit than budget headsets, and unreal scale, depth, and detail once it's dialed in on a capable PC. The catch is exactly that last part, a capable PC. Running it properly means dropping most in-game settings to minimum and running around 70% render resolution just to hold a stable 90 FPS with some overhead built in. Since dips in VR don't just look bad, they can make you feel sick.
Assetto Corsa, please. I'm actually getting motion sick. Whoa.
What both ends share is the core VR trade-off. On the plus side, unmatched immersion. You can literally look inside of the cockpit, look into your mirrors, look behind and all around. Your arms are the ones connected to the wheel from the real car, and driving for the first time is a spectacular feeling. A smaller footprint. You don't necessarily need a nearby monitor at all. So what I've seen some do is have their rig in a corner of their room and run an extension cable to their PC, which is similar to what I do. The downsides can be damning, however, depending on your priorities. The setup hassle of juggling headset software, Steam VR, and the game itself every time you want to race can definitely get frustrating. And the simple fact that no VR headset, however expensive, can replicate the arse feel you get from a real car is a bummer. Another huge downside, which is the reason you don't see many professional sim racers running VR, is that after long driving sessions, VR can be uncomfortable. And for those wanting to drive for hours and hours on end, a monitor is just significantly more comfortable in the long run, however light VR headsets get, like the Pimax Dream Air you see right now. So, based on your situation, here's where I'd point you. Tight on space, tight on budget, or racing on console? Single monitor. It's the cheapest option, needs the least GPU power, and it's the only format that works properly outside of PC. Want a genuine step up in immersion without overcomplicating your setup or your budget? Ultrawide. Still one cable, one panel, and a much wider field of view, and a manageable jump in GPU demand. Got the space and the GPU to spare and want maximum immersion without a headset on your face? Triples or super ultrawide if you want the most of that width without the extra hassle and cost of mounting 3 separate panels. And finally, want the most immersive experience possible or need your rig to have a genuinely small footprint? VR, hands down. Just go in with realistic expectations on price and PC requirements and decide early whether you're after a budget headset to dip your toes in or a proper high-end unit for the full experience. So at the end of the day, there's no single best setup here. Just what's best for you, your space, and your budget. Whether that's a simple 16:9 panel, a wide curved monitor, 3 screens wrapped around you, or a headset strapped to your face, each one gets you closer to the same goal, feeling like you're actually behind the wheel. If this guide helped you out, a like genuinely goes a long way for the channel. I have a full review on the Pimax Dream Air Slam coming up, and if you're already considering VR, that video may be an eye-opener for all the right reasons, so hit subscribe so you know when it's come out.